2.5.6 Monks. There are these two companies. What two? The company trained in bluster. Here, speaking means speaking empty, arrogant words, not in discussion by inquiry. And the company trained in discussion by inquiry, not in speaking empty, arrogant words. And what monks is the company trained in speaking empty, arrogant words, not inquiry. Herein monks, in whatsoever company, the monks listen not to the discourses uttered by the Tathagata, discourses profound, deep in meaning, transcending the world, dealing with emptiness when they are recited. They lend not a ready ear to them, apply not to them a mind bent on understanding, consider not that those teachings are something to be learned by heart and mastered. But when those discourses made by poets, tricked out with fair-sounding phrases, discourses external to Dhamma, utterances of disciples, when such are recited, they listen thereto, lend a ready ear to them, apply to them a mind bent on understanding, and consider that those teachings are something to be learned by heart and mastered. And when they have mastered that teaching, they do not question each other about it, do not open up a discussion thus, what is this? What is the meaning of this? When they neither open up the unrevealed, nor explain the unexplained, nor dispel doubts on diverse doubtful points of Dhamma, such a company, monks, is called trained in speaking empty, arrogant words, not in inquiry. And what monks is the company trained in inquiry, not trained in speaking empty, arrogant words. Herein monks, in whatsoever company, the monks listen not to those discourses made by poets, tricked out with fair-sounding phrases, discourses external to Dhamma, utterances of disciples, but listen to those uttered by the Tathagata, discourses profound, deep in meaning, transcending the world, dealing with emptiness, and having mastered that, question each other about it, open up discussion thus, what is this? What is the meaning of this? When such open up the unrevealed, explain the unexplained, and dispel doubts on diverse doubtful points of Dhamma, such a company is called trained in inquiry, not in speaking empty, arrogant words. These are the two companies, and of these two, the latter has the preeminence. Here again, the Buddha is talking about two companies of monks. One is the monks who listen to the discourses of the Buddha, like the suttas here, like what you all are doing today, listen to the Buddha's words. Whereas the second company are those who listen to the utterances of disciples. What are these discourses that are the utterances of disciples? Utterances of disciples are meant to be the teachings of later monks, because the disciples here refers to the monk disciples of the Buddha. The Buddha could see that in the future, the later monks would write some new books and all that. So there are some people, instead of studying the Buddha's discourses, they prefer to study the words of these other monks. And the Buddha does not encourage that. The other thing about this you find is that the Buddha encourages us to discuss and inquire whatever teachings we come across. We should inquire and discuss about it. In the Mangala Sutta, this is called Dhamma Sakacca, discussion of Dhamma. In the Sangyutta Nikaya number 20, the 20th Sangyutta, the Buddha warned that in the future, people would not want to study and master the suttas, and because people are not interested in the suttas, instead of this listening to the suttas, they rather listen to some other teachings, then it will cause the disappearance of the suttas. It is because the suttas are so important, that's why we take the trouble to read out these suttas, so that people can understand the real teachings of the Buddha. Some people would be surprised to learn that there's no such word as Tripitaka or Tipitaka spoken by the Buddha. Tipitaka was something that was coined later. In the suttas, we find the Buddha only mentions his teachings as Dhamma Vinaya. Dhamma are the, according to the Anguttara Nikaya, the Dhamma refers to the suttas. Suttas of the Buddha are called Dhamma, and Vinaya are the disciplinary rules for the monks. So the later books you find like the commentaries and the Abhidhamma, there are certain contradictions. If you take the trouble to study the suttas in detail, then you'll find that there are certain contradictions, with the Abhidhamma, with the commentaries. So it is only the earliest four Nikayas that there are no contradictions. And these earliest four Nikayas are accepted by everyone, including Mahayana, including Tibetan Buddhism and Theravada Buddhism, as being the original words of the Buddha. And there, if we study the four Nikayas, we find that there are no contradictions in them. They are very consistent. That is why, because these are not controversial books, that it is best, if we want to study, to depend on the four Nikayas basically. In the Digha Nikaya number 26, the Buddha said, "Be a lamb unto yourselves, be a refuge unto yourselves with no other refuge. Take the Dhamma as your lamb, take the Dhamma as your refuge with no other refuge." So the Buddha is telling us that we take the Dhamma, the Buddha's teachings, to be our master. And that's why we always take refuge with the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. That means the original teachings of the Buddha, his original teachings, and those Aryan disciples. But the trouble is, sometimes it's hard to tell which are the Aryan disciples. So it was decided in the second Sangha Council, about 100 years after the Buddha's passing away, that if any monk teaches anything that is consistent with the Buddha's teachings, then we listen to him. If they teach us anything that is inconsistent with the Buddha's teachings, that means in the suttas, we don't listen to them. That was